DGC Requiem, back with Death Shadow John. We're going into the 5th match. We're 4-0. Looks like we're going to be on the play here. Being on the play, I'm kind of okay with this hand because we have Inquisition into Liliana. There's a good chance Inquisition gets us into position to play the Liliana, so I think we just keep here. Opponent mulligans down to 5, which makes this Inquisition look even better. So at this point, I have no clue what this deck is. So maybe some sort of green-white humans deck or something to that effect. Tireless Tracker, we all know what that does. Duskwatch Recruiter is pretty popular in Standard. I haven't seen it in Modern as of yet, so look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform Duskwatch Recruiter. And then after he transforms, he costs... makes creatures cost 1 less, and then if player casts 2 or more spells, retransform it back to Duskwatch Recruiter. So I think here we just take the Duskwatch Recruiter. 3, 4. By the time he plays his first Duskwatch Recruiter, hopefully we'll have drawn into something else, but at the very least we'll have a Liliana to kill it. And then that just buys us time to get the Tireless Tracker, I think, here. Opponent plays a Forest and passes. Fatal Push, excellent. So now we're in really good position with the Tireless Tracker. We actually are going to be able to either play the Liliana, well, we probably will be able to play the Liliana to kill Duskwatch Recruiter, and then we have a fetch saved for the Fatal Push on the Tireless Tracker. Opponent just drew the Blooming Marsh, didn't play the Windswept Heath, and out the Duskwatch Recruiter. And so we can just actually Fatal Push that now, and then we'll just save the Liliana. We'll be able to uptick Liliana once and then downtick it on the Tireless Tracker later. Actually, we won't even have to do that now, so Abrupt Decay will handle the Tireless Tracker, so we're looking good, except for the fact that we don't have a creature. Gonna get rid of that Forest here. So the opponent pitched a Court of Calling, which was the only card we didn't know about, so now we still have perfect information. Visceraseer. Okay, so this is probably some sort of Abzan company list based on what we've seen. Obviously we saw green white, we got black mana and a Visceraseer. Not uncommon for Tireless Tracker to be run. This is new to see Duskwatch Recruiter though. Maybe this is like a budget list or something. Temur Battle Rage, so we're kind of getting there. So the opponent played it out, left with a Tireless Tracker, so we're just going to go ahead and get rid of the Tireless Tracker with an uptick. I think we probably just pitch the Battle Rage. So we already have an instant and a sorcery. So there's really not anything we can do to turn on the Traverse, so maybe we just pitch the Traverse here. The Battle Rage gets us a chance to strike through with lethal, and they can gum up the board pretty well. So probably actually better to pitch the Traverse at the moment. But this is a playback. I actually pitched the Temur Battle Rage. Brilliant. And then we kill the Visceraseer, but in response he's just going to go ahead and sack the Visceraseer to himself so he can get a Scry, but fetching before he does that so that his Scry is now wasted. So their scry is not wasted if it's a could be a another player, non-male person playing. So opponent draws Marsh Flats, pass. We're a little bit of a just kind of stalemate here, but we have a significantly stronger hand. I actually don't think I'm going to... We don't want to get rid of the Fatal Push. We can traverse for a land, which might be worth it. Honestly, I'm almost more apt to just not do... I suppose if we yeah, no, we still can just only get a basic, and we can only get a swamp. We already pitched the forest. Looks like we just fire off the traverse here. So this is, looking back here, I was going to say, if we're not going to... I guess at this point we're probably racing to, the thought was probably, okay, well, we haven't drawn anything, let's try and turn a Street Wraith into a creature, if we draw it. And we don't uptick because we want to hold that Fatal Push against the combo deck. They're getting close to Collected Company. They haven't hit one yet, but there's a good chance they're going to. So Voice of Resurgence. Probably looking at downtick here. We don't have any reason to do a Thoughtseize. We can just hold the Thoughtseize for an uptick later. But I think, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and downtick on the Voice. And then probably just wait and see what they cast next turn. And if nothing, we'll Fatal Push the Elemental. Just to keep Liliana in good shape. Alright, we hit a Street Wraith here, but we can't cast it as of yet. So we're just going to uptick, get rid of that Thoughtseize. Keep Liliana as a removal spell, hold on to the Street Wraith for the time being. Opponent hits a Noble Hierarch. I don't know that I necessarily want... Yep, here we go. So now that we have the Street Wraith, I think we're good to just run out the Street Wraith, and then the Noble is only putting enough pressure on Liliana to match the uptick. So I think we can just basically ignore the Noble Hierarch and just try and race our opponent's Street Wraith. They can't block since they control a swamp and Overgrown Tomb. And at 3 points, we got 6 attacks right now versus their 11 attacks if they try and go to the face with Noble Hierarch. Opponent draws another land. So we just uptick here, pitch in Thoughtseize, and then we're going to swing in with the Wraith. Again, he can't. The opponent cannot block with Noble Hierarch because of the Street Wraith Swamp Walk ability. Noble probably heading at Liliana. Yep. We're just going to take that. We're kind of not really under any pressure. Second Liliana, that actually turns Traverse on now, 6 cards later. Alright, so we uptick in the opponent Collected Company. So really, like, the worst thing is they could hit 2 of their combo pieces. So Vizier of Remedies is actually a new card. And Kitchen Finks. And actually, Vizier of Remedies, if one or more -1/-1 counters we put on a creature you control, that many -1/-1 counters are -1 are put it. Let's read that back. If one or more -1/-1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many -1/-1 counters -1 are put on a set. So, like for Kitchen Finks, when it dies, has persist, it comes back to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. This would make it come back with 0, because it would come back with 1 -1, which would be 0. So this is basically another combo piece, like a what do you call it? Like Malira or Anafenza the Foremost, not the Foremost, Anafenza Kin Spirit or something like that. So this is just another way to combo out. So I actually hit 2 of their combo pieces, so they're just a Viscera Seer away from the Infinite Life combo, which I've actually technically done the math on this, and we can beat it with an ultimate. No, you can't beat it. What is it? If you have enough removal to kill the Kitchen Finks, you could defeat them gaining like 1,000,000 life with an ultimating Liliana the Last Hope. If your opponent were to say like 1,000,000 life, and that's, I think it was more than that. It was something like 1.6 billion. This is a waste of a story, but it's like it was like 1.6 billion or something like that. If your opponent doesn't name that amount based on the number of cards that are left in the deck, like there's a good chance Liliana could put out enough zombies to defeat your opponent if you had enough removal to shut their combo off. But that's not happening here, so we'll just let our opponent hit the life. And so then they're going to sacrifice the Kitchen Finks here, and the Finks is going to come back again without a -1/-1 counter. So they actually gain 4 life there on that Collector Company, which is pretty good. Now that race is a little more hairy. They could swing for 5, which is 3 attacks, and we're looking at 7 attacks now. So I think what we're going to do here, we're going to play out Liliana. No, okay, so I decided not to. I think my thought was originally I could just play out another Liliana, make them sacrifice another creature, but they're just going to sacrifice the Kitchen Finks again, which would gain them 2 more life, and it wouldn't really do anything. So there's no point in doing that. We already down tick, so we can't uptick Liliana. So we might as well just hold a blocker back. Although, actually, I probably skipped a little too fast there. The Kitchen Finks is going to be a 4/3 with the Exalted trigger. And that means if we block with Street Wraith, it's going to die. The Kitchen Finks would die. But again, it's going to come back without a -1/-1 counter. So I probably should have actually attacked there with a Street Wraith. That's a mistake. Not thinking through the full consequences. Devoted Druid. So I actually played this in Elves. There was a green infinite mana combo with Devoted Druid, where if you played 2 Devoted Druids and you had 1 mana to kickstart it with an Azuri, you could generate 6 mana, I think it was, with your Devoted Druids to activate an Azuri. Maybe it was 2 Devoted Druids and 5 mana total. I can't remember the exact details. But this actually looks to pair really well with Vizier of Remedies, because every time you tap it, so it's tap to add a green to your mana pool, put a -1/-1 counter onto it, and then untap it, which means the opponent can actually just create infinite mana here. They literally can just tap it and untap it over and over with the Vizier of Remedies. So I'm actually familiar with this combo. I'm kind of trying to act like I didn't know about this before, but this is something I'm considering doing in Elves, and so I hopefully will have some matches with that soon. But this already was pairing well with Azuri, so adding Vizier for a second infinite mana sink in Elves seems great too, because you could chord for Azuri, create infinite mana, and then attack for lethal with just 1 Devoted Druid, 1 Vizier. There's actually quite a few things you can do. Plus, Devoted Druid just naturally fits well into Elves, or can fit okay into Elves at least. So, as it is though, this is probably not looking too great for us. We really can't downtick Liliana, because our opponent is just going to have that Finks die over and over on us. So we actually just have to let the Liliana draw another Liliana, which again doesn't do anything, but we're just going to keep playing Lilianas out here, I think. And as we play out the Lilianas, this just buys us time to hopefully draw into something. So the opponent's just doing the infinite mana thing here. Three mana for another Kitchen Finks. So we're in big trouble here. So we were sitting in a position where maybe if we killed off the Vizier, we would be able to down tick with Liliana to kill off the Kitchen Finks, which would at least turn off the combo pretty strongly. But now that they have 2 Kitchen Finks, we can't even really effectively down tick. So I think at this point, I think I just decide we need to attack because we're losing otherwise. And then we'll play the Grimflayer as a blocker. But we're still in a position where... So the reason we're attacking here is that if we play out a Grimflayer, even if we try to double block, the Finks is going to kill one of our creatures, and again, they're not going to lose anything. We're just kind of in this bizarre position. On the plus side, without a sack outlet, their Kitchen Finks can't gain them any life. So the opponent gets another Noble Hierarch. So now we're looking at still just a 2-turn clock, or 3-turn clock rather, with the Kitchen Finks. No point in blocking here again. Our creature dies, theirs comes back. Foothills. And that's pretty much it. So we're gonna attack with the Grimflayer. And the hope here is just to draw into something useful. Again, maybe really just we need a removal spell for the Vizier, but it's probably too late. Okay, so we can actually put the Death Shadow. Death Shadow buys us some time if we can live that long. I think we're just dead here. I mean, if we put the Thoughtseize on the bottom, Death Shadow on top of the Fatal Push on top of that, we can kill their Vizier. But assuming that they swing in for another 5 this turn, even if we chump block, if we kill the Vizier, they're able to attack for 6 the next turn. I guess if we leave the Grimflayer back to chump, would be okay. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to pitch the Thoughtseize, put the Death Shadow, and then the push. Alright, so that basically just ends it for us. So what we're looking at here is, even if we draw that Fatal Push to kill the Vizier Remedies, the opponent has the Anaphenzicon Tree Spirit, so Kitchen Fink still just doesn't die. So we're straight dead in the water here. They're going to attack for 5. We can block the Vizier. But if we block the Vizier, we're actually going to take lethal, so we have to block the Finks, which is just going to gain them 2 life while we take 5. And now the Anaphenzicon Tree Spirit trigger goes on the Noble Hierarch, so not only now they have an actual extra attacker. So Fatal Push here, if we Fatal Push the Vizier, I almost want to Fatal Push the Anaphenza now, but I think at this point I've just kind of realized we're done, there's nothing we can do. Just make our opponent play it out, make sure they attack with lethal. And that's it. Nothing we can do there, and so we concede the game. So we don't see a lot of Abzan Company online. Typically the combo is really really slow and clicky, and so you just don't see a lot of it played online. But the Devoted Druid thing and being able to create infinite mana is pretty neat, and actually that makes sense with Duskwatch Recruiter now too. So you could actually take Devoted Druid, creating infinite mana, use 3 mana, look at the top 3 cards of your library, reveal a creature card, put it into your hand, and then put the rest in the bottom. So you could just loop this. If you have infinite mana, you can draw not your deck, but any collection of creatures you want, and that allows you to put your combo together from scratch. So it's probably a little faster than scrying through like you used to have to do with Viscera Seer, so maybe that's why it's popping up here. But anyway, let's go to game 2. Hopefully we can steal one here. I do find the company decks to be a little more difficult for Shadow. The Finks are problematic, and basically they get wide enough that they can kind of just get you, similar to like Elves. The collected company decks in general are pretty good with their ability to get wide. Sometimes if you can pick off the right pieces pretty quickly, you can put enough pressure on them that they have to start chump blocking, but not with the sort of hand that I had, where I had really no threat to put any pressure on them. So we took out 2 Street Wraiths, we took out all of the Lilianas of the Veil, took out an Inquisition and 4 Thoughtseize, and looks like we brought in a second Battle Rage. Also brought out a Mishra's Bauble, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards out. And if we look at our sideboard, we brought in Nihil Spellbombs and Grafdigger Cage. So Nihil Spellbomb, just to clear the graveyard if they're trying to like do a combo, you can clear it so that the creatures can't come back to the battlefield. Grafdigger shuts down Collected Company, Court of Calling, and their ability to return creatures from the graveyard. Collective Brutality is good because you can go at their creatures and rip a Collected Company from their hand potentially. We brought in 1 more of the Tamer Battle Rage. We didn't want 3 here, but the second one just gives you a little bit of ability to try and finish through their creature set that gets wide. And then Terminated Abrupt Decay just as extra removal. Anger of the Gods as sweeper removal that permanently removes their creatures. When they get exiled, they don't return to the battlefield, which is great for the persist triggers. And then Liliana the Last Hope, which is just recurring removal. So really focused on more of a removal, handle the board game plan here. So we're on the play. So we can't play Shadow or Abrupt Decay, but pretty much any other land in the deck is going to give us access to black. And we do have Tarmogoyf to try and put pressure on our opponent early, and we're kind of halfway there on the Anger of the Gods, just needing the second red source. So we could probably just go get a Blood Crypt to hit this Anger of the Gods. I actually really feel like this hand is good. Definitely need to get to a black mana source at some point, but I think this is doable. Opponent plays out of birds. We hit Bauble. Bauble's great here. Take a peek at our own top card, which is Inquisition, which would be better if we had a black mana source, so we may get a little pinched on mana here if we don't draw into a black mana source. We could just let our opponent get out of control before we have the ability to do anything. So we play the Tarmogoyf, they play a Noble Hierarch, and Devoted Druid. So they have access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana next turn. Potentially more if they hit a Vizier. Traverse is good, so Traverse allows us to go get a Swamp. And with a Swamp we could Inquisition them or Abrupt Decay them. Probably better to hold up the Abrupt Decay in case they have the ability to go for the full-on combo next turn. And then just swinging with the Goyf. Opponent's probably not blocking. I mean, with a good Collected Company, they still have access to 2 mana. They could easily hit all 3 pieces of their combo. And again, our deck really feasibly can't win through that. So the opponent at least doesn't need all the mana, so they're going to attack with the Hierarch. Again, no point in wasting the Abrupt Decay on any of these creatures as of yet. The opponent doesn't do anything, so for mana efficiency, especially since we're playing for the Anger of the Gods, I think at this point we'll probably just go at the Devoted Druid, and that way they can't create infinite mana if they hit Vizier. So there they go for the Collected Company, even leave Birds of Paradise to block. Hit a Duskwatch Recruiter and a Kitchen Finks. So as we can see, this is looking great for us again. Hashtag sarcasm. Speaking of hashtags, Twitter handle down in the bottom there. I often will run polls to see what people want me to play from week to week. A little new on the Twitter thing. I don't tweet a ton, but if it's something that you are interested in, you want to have some say in what I play from week to week. I don't do it every week, but usually at least every other week. Again, Twitter handle is down there. Okay, so Fatal Push. So we have a choice between Push and Inquisition. I think what we just do is we run out the second Tarmogoyf here and then hold up Fatal Push for combo piece. Actually, may even just kill the Duskwatch Recruiter. Ugh. So opponent paths, and we don't actually have the ability to go get any other basics. So we'll just, again, run out this Tarmogoyf. The pressure we had potentially been able to put on is no longer there. Really looking to draw into some sort of... Oh man, another Collected Company. We really need to draw into a fetch here and get another red mana source. Vizier of Remedies and Eternal Witness. The Eternal Witness is going to get the Collected Company back. Sure, at this point, why not just keep going for the combo? Fortunately, our Inquisition doesn't do a whole lot of good. I think we're just going to Fatal Push the Vizier now. We could have gone after the Duskwatch Recruiter. So I actually held off. And I think the reason I held off at this point is I'm pretty much dead based on what the opponent has in hand. With Duskwatch Recruiter, that much mana, and a Collected Company in hand, really my only legitimate out is to resolve an Anger. And then if we resolve an Anger, if they get back to Collected Company, we want to have more removal in hand. And so that's why I made that decision at the time to not cast the Fatal Push on the Vizier. And the play was rewarded. I don't want to say it was rewarded because of this, but by drawing into the Bloodstained Mire. So what we can do here is fetch for a Blood Crypt, cast the Anger, which will cause them to lose their entire board to exile. Now we can attack. Probably should have Inquisition first there, but we could have attacked and Inquisition and then attacked. As it is, I think we probably just Inquisition post-combat here. Right, and so we definitely want to get rid of that path, I think, at this point. Well, yeah. So we do have the one positive is the opponent. Yeah, the opponent's only on 2 mana. They don't have access. I definitely think we take the path here. Titles Tracker and Kitchen Finks. Titles Tracker not so much, but Kitchen Finks is a problem. Can buy them quite a bit of time, but they need to hit that 3rd mana to do it. Titles Tracker is not as big of a deal, but we have Fatal Push to handle whichever the first one they play out is. So Path to Exile seems like the right choice. And so instead I take Kitchen Finks. Probably just hedging against the opponent drawing a land. I always love how when I watch these afterwards I see the plays differently. So might as well just run this Tarmogoyf into the path. Again, we're not going to be able to get any basics. Cycle the Street Wraith, and then this Liliana is a huge draw, as that's going to allow us to really handle whatever they may put on the battlefield. So we're just going to uptick Liliana there. Because both of our Tarmogoyfs were paths, we don't have the ability to use the downtick ability. Of course, the opponent hits Phyrexian Revoker, which is going to probably name activated abilities with chosen name can't be activated, so they're probably going to name Liliana here, which makes a lot of sense. Yep. Bloodstained Mire. So we can actually get Death Shadow down now. 11, that'll make the Death Shadow a 2/2. We still have access to Fatal Push, so we could kill the Phyrexian Revoker, play the Death Shadow, and uptick. Seems like the proper line there. I mean, we technically could downtick and go get a Street Wraith as well, but at this point, we're just kind of looking to be prepared to handle their creatures and create a zombie army. Scavenging Ooze. So quite a few creatures for the opponent to eat. 2, 3, 4. Probably start with our Street Wraith. So the Liliana downtick ability is kind of done. So we're just going to play out the Grim Flare, and then Liliana, the Scavenging Ooze. Since they only are able to eat one creature, the Death Shadow will still be able to attack for without being able to be blocked, which is fine. And then the Grim Flare, even if the opponent eats 3, is still going to be big enough to block the Scavenging Ooze on the attack back. Yeah, so the opponent just takes the damage. We sit the Grim Flare down, and then they're going to probably just eat the Street Wraith here. Again, even if they eat 2 more creatures on their turn, they can't attack into the Grim Flare unless they draw another green mana source, which they did not. So here, excellent, we get to make our Death Shadow a little bit bigger. So we now have 4 power on 2 bodies. That presents lethal. I think the appropriate play here, yeah, this is not the appropriate play. So I think if we tag the Viscera Seer, we can attack with both creatures and make the Scavenging Ooze block. However, the Scavenging Ooze could eat 2 creatures, which would make our Grim Flare, or even just 2 spells, which they can shrink our Grim Flare down, and simultaneously they can then block one of our creatures. The flip side of this, and the reason I went with Viscera Seer here, is they're 1 card away, 1 land to casting Collected Company. And if they cast that Collected Company, they potentially could just combo out on us. So really should have probably gone after the Scavenging Ooze here and then attacked with both. They would have only been able to, they'd have had a 1/4. No, sorry, they would have had a 1/2, they eat 2. They'd have gotten up to a 2/4, 3/4. They have to block with something, so they probably block with a Viscera Seer, or else they do just enough to get the Scavenging Ooze big enough to trade with the Grim Flare, which it wouldn't because they would be a 2/4 theoretically, or a 2/3. The Grim Flare is, yeah. So actually I think this is the right play. I think the Viscera Seer, thinking back, I think I probably played this too fast, but we just need to make sure that we get that Viscera dead so that they can't combo. We're just going to have to draw into a different answer for the Scavenging Ooze. We wouldn't have really gotten a valuable attack in otherwise. Certainly wouldn't have been able to attack with Death Shadow the following turn. This opponent's going to eat a couple more creatures here. Plus we're still in just a strong position to ultimate Liliana. Abrupt Decay, so that's a clean answer. We're just going to be able to Abrupt Decay, down tick Liliana, attack for lethal. They have a Collected Company, they're certainly going to cast that. But yeah, I think we just go to combat, attack, see what they hit with their Collected Company, because they're going to cast it before blocks, and then we can Abrupt Decay before they set their blockers. And again, almost certainly going to be the Scavenging Ooze. And they only hit a Duskwatch Recruiter, that's brutal. So we'll Abrupt Decay the Scavenging Ooze. And they're just going to concede at this point. Alright, so got the game 2. We're going to go to the rubber match. See if we made any changes in sideboarding for game 3. Street Wraith, still all the Lilianas. Nope, looks like we kept the same sideboard. We're on the draw here. I mean, being on the draw, I'm okay with this. We're going to get 3... So we're going to get a draw, we're going to get 2 redraws here. This helps us towards traverse. I'm totally good with this. Sometimes you gotta just trust the heart of the cards, but that's part of what these baubles are for. I'm going to get that Delirium turned on, make our Goyfs bigger, and replace themselves. Opponent's going to lead off. Razor Verge, Thicket into Birds. Fatal Push is a good draw. We don't need to use it on the birds here, though. Take a quick peek at our top card, which is an Anger, which is excellent. We want to keep that on top, and so we're going to play our Overgrown Tomb instead of one of these fetches, or else we're going to play an Overgrown. Otherwise, we're going to play one of these fetches and just not crack it, but probably just makes more sense to play. Okay. Well, I guess, okay, so that makes sense. So I'm just trying to speed up the process of going to get the red mana. Alright, and then on our opponent's turn, we're going to draw the Anger. That's right, because we're not cracking the fetch till their end of their turn anyway. Sometimes it's a little harder to think through all these lines when you're playing after the fact. In some way you want to say what you did do, in some ways you want to say what you're thinking, and it just makes for some interesting insight. But with that Scavenging Ooze, we're definitely going to kill that Scavenging Ooze with the Fatal Push, so it should get Blood Crypt. And like an idiot, we actually grabbed the Overgrown Tomb. Pretty sure that I said, wow, idiot, like out loud to myself when I did that in real time. So we'll kill the Scavenging Ooze, not a whole lot we can do now. We had 2 fetches to get us our 2 red mana sources. Let's see if that ends up costing us anything. And they eat the Bauble in response. So here we're just going to go ahead and play another Bauble out. We'll see what's on top again. Grafdigger's Cage, which is actually phenomenal. So in this case, instead of playing out the red mana source, which will be a little risky to some extent, we could play the Bloodstained Mire to go get a red mana source, and that gives us access to Anger of the Gods. But it actually makes a little more sense, I think, to just play the Overgrown Tomb, probably sideways, not play Tarmogoyf here, and Thoughtseize our opponent. Actually, so no. So as I say that, we actually can Thoughtseize our opponent. That gives us Delirium, and then Traverse for a Shadow. Or we can play Tarmogoyf. I suppose none of these are bad options, but I was pretty sure that's what I was doing. So the next turn, then, the plan would be to play the fetch, Thoughtseize our opponent, go get a Death Shadow, crack the Bloodstained Mire, possibly play the Death Shadow. I'm really out of sync with what I was trying to do here. Oh no, we're not going to do all that because we're definitely 100% playing Grafdigger's Cage next turn. So Selfless Spirit's a little bit of a problem. Makes the Anger of the Gods a little weaker. Got to make sure we have that Selfless Spirit handled. Now we've drawn that extra fetch. So we have access to getting to the Anger now. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to play the Grafdigger's Cage, play a fetch, probably Thoughtseize our opponent. Opponent just has 2 lands, so we're actually in pretty strong position. They have 3 lands, 4, 5, 6 mana, so they are going to be able to Gavany, and we are putting ourselves at a pretty low life total, so we do need to be a little worried with that on the Selfless Spirit. But we'll go get a Shadow here. Again, we just really, so we've kind of with the Grafdigger's Cage shut down their ability to recur their Kitchen Finks, to Collected Company, to Court of Calling. But we really need to force them to lose that Selfless Spirit to make that Anger good. Tireless Tracker is a good draw. So it becomes extra relevant now because that Tireless Tracker could actually outgrow the Anger of the Gods. Opponent attacks. Alright, so here we can play out Tarmogoyf and Death Shadow. I think that's better than angering here because, again, as mentioned, we need to remove that Selfless Spirit. So we're going to start by attacking with the Tarmogoyf, assuming no blocks. And then we'll just jam the Tarmogoyf and a Death Shadow here. No. I don't even know. I honestly, I don't know what I'm doing here. I mean, I know we have to get rid of the Selfless Spirit. But now we're like in this weird spot where I suppose it stops them from being able to chump block, and maybe I'm worried because the Selfless Spirit can race us, potentially. I guess I'm not 100% certain why I do that there. I feel like it's better to wait for the spot removal, but I don't know. I think we were putting enough pressure on our opponents that maybe we should have done that differently. So it looks like the opponent... Okay, so I would have assumed they're going to kind of just Gavany there, but that makes sense to Tireless Tracker. So now they're starting to get a big tracker, which makes combat a little awkward. As we look at combat, we're definitely just going to attack with the Death Shadow. I mean, they can't collect a company or anything, so they've used this, and I'm pretty sure they use this now. Jump with the birds, right? Certainly not jumping with the Tireless Tracker. And actually, it looks like we are in a strong position. So now I look back at this and I go, maybe that anger was the right thing, and maybe in the moment I was playing better than I'm thinking now. So when I looked back at their opponent's hand, they had 2 lands. So we anger. Sorry, I'm just checking the log here. Did I Thoughtseize? Yeah, so I Thoughtseize, so I knew they only had the 2 lands. So maybe I was thinking we make them sack the... Actually sack the Selfless Spirit, play the Death Shadow. And then in that scenario, they're going to have to start chump blocking every turn on the Death Shadow. So maybe I actually had that line in my mind, and I just failed to see it here when we were replaying, because unfortunately sometimes you're not as focused, sometimes you're more focused, sometimes you see things you didn't see before, but 2020 vision in retrospect. But I think in this case I actually am just kind of overlooking maybe a line that I saw at the time. That does kind of make sense looking back at how this game is playing out, that again, by killing the Selfless Spirit, we don't have to worry about him, the opponent rather, racing us in the air. And we have the ground pretty clogged up, and we're attacking with a shadow that is lethal, so the opponent is going to have to trade creatures one for one. The Grafdigger's Cage is going to make it very difficult for the opponent to do anything of note, anything of relevance. They're not going to be able to get multiple creatures with a Grafdigger's Cage. So I guess that probably does make sense, actually. So opponent plays another land. Tireless Tracker begets more and more lands. Play the Anafenza. Probably going to crack the Clue, yep. Tireless Tracker is big enough to attack in now, but they would have to be willing to trade one of our Tarmogoyfs, and I don't think that makes sense to them because they're going to have to trade the Anafenza already. So if they were to attack in, then they chump on the... We would have to block with the Tarmogoyf. We both lose our creature. We attack the opponent. They chump with Anafenza. They go down to 2. Yeah, that's just not a winning strategy for them. And they may have like an Abrupt Decay or something. So we're going to attack with Death Shadow again here. And the opponent could sit there, and they could block with both, but again, if they block with both, then they're just in real big trouble the next turn. Tireless Tracker is actually getting big enough where it may be able to interact with our Tarmogoyfs and even possibly Death Shadow at some point. And we're going to pass turn. Opponent gets another land. Clue. Eternal Witness, returning the Selfless Spirit. So this is actually problematic. The Selfless Spirit is now going to allow our opponent to protect the Tireless Tracker when we really need to kill it. And we may even be in a spot where we might not be able to pressure them enough. Certainly at the... Okay. I was going to say, at the moment, we're going to attack with the Death Shadow. The Eternal Witness is just kind of a free chump block. Can't imagine they would sacrifice the Selfless Spirit there. Anger is great. We could cast Anger like we did last time, causing the Selfless Spirit to sacrifice itself. The problem is we can't attack if we do that. So if we cast the Anger of the Gods, the opponent's going to have creatures that are indestructible. So even if we attack the Death Shadow, we're not forcing a trade or a chump like we would have the previous time. So in this case, we probably just want to play out a fetch here, hold the fetch up for a turning on a later Fatal Push if we can draw one. Then we're going to attack with the Shadow. Yep. Opponent just chumps with Eternal Witness. We're still okay. If the opponent attacks with a Tireless Tracker, we can double block with Tarmogoyf. We're willing to trade one Tarmogoyf for a Tireless Tracker. Opponent, however, just keeps drawing cards. Squatch Recruiter. So we're starting to get into a little bit of trouble here. They're producing blockers at a faster rate than we are forcing them to lose them. Opponent has a lot of mana. They can start Duskwatch recruiting as well to get extra creatures. Okay, so Fatal Push is excellent. We can Fatal Push the Tireless Tracker by sacking a fetch, but if we do that, the opponent will sacrifice Selfless Spirit to protect the Tireless Tracker. So we need to actually fire off Anger of the Gods, and then in response to them trying to protect everything with Tireless Tracker, we can crack the fetch and Fatal Push the Tireless Tracker. And the rest of the creatures are gone, or are fine. They're indestructible, so there's really no point in attacking here. But we got rid of the Selfless Spirit and the Tireless Tracker, which were their two biggest threats. Voice, however, is a bit of a threat. So as we attack, the Voice is gonna produce a token, and that just buying the opponent more time still. Alright, so Abrupt Decay, pretty good. I think the Duskwatch Recruiter is the biggest threat here, as the opponent can just draw more creatures this way. If they draw, they can activate it twice here with the amount of mana they have on. We got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah. So they can actually activate it twice to get up to 2 more creatures. I think it probably makes sense just to attack to start. And I think we can only attack with Death Shadow. If we attack with the Tarmogoyf, they chump. Well, yeah, because can they Gavany twice? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they actually can activate Gavany twice if they chump with the Voice of Resurgence token. Which means we would have 1 Tarmogoyf and they would have 2 4/4 creatures. So we actually can't attack with the other Tarmogoyf, only the Death Shadow. Plus they'd have a Devoted Druid, yeah. And then I think we definitely just want to kill the Duskwatch Recruiter here before their turn when they have even more mana. Though, yeah, because they're going to still spend the mana this turn, whether we kill it or not. So they actually got a Kitchen Finks there. They're going to activate again. Vizier of Remedies. So, thank goodness we killed this Duskwatch Recruiter. The Vizier with the Devoted Druid and the... oh man. The only other option I think is maybe killing the Elemental and putting the pressure on the opponent the next turn. That would have been bad news. As it is, Grafdigger stops the Kitchen Finks from recurring. Oh man, another Duskwatch Recruiter. So our opponent actually has this combo set up now. They can tap for infinite mana with Devoted Druid, use Duskwatch Recruiter to go draw all their cards, and then next turn they can cast them. Whatever combo pieces they need, and they only need 2 combo pieces. So we basically have to kill our opponents this turn, and if we don't, I think we lose. So Nihil Spellbound could be worse draws. We can just sacrifice this. Really what we need, the only way we can kill our opponent is if we draw a Temur Battle Rage. If we attack with everything, you know, the Elemental, the Duskwatch Recruiter, they could do 2. So they probably just block, honestly. the Tarmogoyf and the Death Shadow, they could let one Tarmogoyf in, and then they would still have both pieces of the combo. Before damage, they could do the infinite mana thing to draw the cards for the combo. Although they can't, I guess really the more I think about this, they can't combo while the heal Spellbomb's there, but they could just go find a Reclamation Sage as well, and then Reclamation Sage, then heal Spellbomb away, and then combo out. So, or not the Spellbomb, but the Grafdigger's Cage. So we just gotta crack this, and we gotta hope to draw a Temur Battle Rage. And we draw the Temur Battle Rage. Excellent. So I think here we could attack with everything to try and put pressure on. But I guess depending on what our opponent's plans are, maybe it's better to hold the Tarmogoyfs back to chump, maybe give us, I guess it just, does it even matter? If we attack, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 5. So first strike damage, if we applied 9 points of first strike damage to the other 4 creatures, the elemental just dies, and then the Death Shadow does enough damage on second combat. So we're just fine to just attack with the Death Shadow here. So first strike damage we would apply to these 4 creatures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. First strike damage, this would be the last creature, if they blocked with everything, which they're not going to do because they've got this combo together. And so my assumption is they're probably going to block with just the Finks, because they can just get a new Finks and infinite mana to cast it. So just attack here, they're going to block with the Finks, go for their combo, but we have Temur Battle Rage. And we target the opponent's Kitchen Finks. So we have the kill here. We've won the game. The only way we can lose, really, as far as I can tell, is to target the opponent's Kitchen Finks. And we do. So this is a bit embarrassing. So we kill the Kitchen Finks. It can't persist because of Grafdigger's Cage. We still have 2 blockers. So maybe we'll just draw another Temur Battle Rage the next turn. This is so embarrassing. Alright, so the opponent gets some cards, plays a land, doing their infinite mana thing here. Gain some life. Activate Gavany Township once, activate Gavany Township twice. Oh, and actually they're just going for lethal. So they have enough attackers to get wide of us with the 2 Gavany pumps. Even if we block the elemental and say the Vizier, they're still getting 6 damage on the other side. So we basically just blew this game. Could have been a 5-0 league, and instead we are going to finish with a lovely 1-2 here. Opponent choosing and not that it's any fault of their own, but choosing not to accept the fact that the game was kind of clearly won. But again, it's not their responsibility for me to target the right creature. Just one of those things that never would have happened in paper. A bit frustrating, but this is why every play matters, and we'll see you next time.